Hello everyone, my name is Eric Terramons, and today we're going to be going over all that messiness that is the X-Men 97, a follow-up to the 1992 X-Men The Animated Series. Now I know I usually do anime series and figure review, so why the heck am I talking about the X-Men? I'm not going to be talking about the anime miniseries or the really cool epic theme songs that Japan got during the 1992 animated series. But along with the comics from that era, that 90s cartoon really did a lot to develop who I am as a person and was a huge inspiration towards the creation of my manga comic book that I write, illustrate, and self-publish called Blythe. Actually, when people ask me what my comic is all about, I tend to give them the X-Men as a reference point mixed with Sailor Moon, which was another series that I loved growing up. Those were the perfect building blocks to add on all my horrible traumas I've had growing up, as well as my epic wins. Keep in mind, folks, that this is, of course, my own opinion. Just because we don't see eye to eye on something doesn't mean we can't have an amazing conversation about it. So if you have your own opinions, please write so in the comments section. And a quick disclaimer, I may mention a few things about that 1992 X-Men animated series cartoon that could be a little spoilery, so you've been warned. With that aside, I should suit up for the occasion. Cyclops. Magneto cried superiority while Xavier preached coexistence. But Scott, he was the only one back then that truly pushed equality. I guess in a world where people like Tony Stark, Hank Pym, or even Nick Fury exist, it's fair to see us as equals. Back in the 1990s, that X-Men cartoon was so freaking epic. I mean, I'd say it was roughly 80% or so similar to the comics coming out, and this was just great. I remember actually talking to a fellow fan about it back in the 90s, and they had argued with me that it was boring because it was too similar to the comics. My goodness, I'm curious what that person thinks about that now. Us fans seem to only dream of having something nearly as accurate in this day and age. It was an awesome series, and it really got a lot right, especially in its design mimicking the comics drawn by the talented and skilled artist Jim Lee at the time. I just love those hairstyles. Even back then, they felt so over the top, and I lived for every second of this. So imagine the hype. After all these years later, they announce a follow-up series. All us kids that grew up with it, and then the kids after that that were forced to watch it by their parents instead of going out and playing sports, and then their kids that now are being forced to watch it when all they really want to do is just play Genshin Impact. Yup. A whole whack of generations converging to this 97 show. But in truth, the target audience is clearly those that watched it back in the 90s. We're all fully grown-up adults. At least we try to be. Figures are just so freaking cool. The follow-up comics back then were great. So will this show continue where we left off? Only changing things 20%? Well, judging by those running this show back at the House of Mouse, I doubt it. I mean, when has the D ever cared about accuracy? They only want money like any large corporation, and they'll pander to anyone in order to get it. This means hiring the right people for the wrong job. I'm not gonna go on a crusade here. There are more than enough YouTube channels out pushing their own point of views, but on this specific subject, I just want to chime in a bit with my own observations on the matter. Let's start it off with Morph. It's been announced that he'll be non-binary in this new show. Do I have a problem with this as a hardcore fan of the franchise? Of course not! Anyone that knows Morph can tell you he's always swung in whatever way made him happy. He consistently had identity crises, and it was associated with all sorts of things, but for now let's just say it's his shape-changing mutant ability that allows him to perceive things from a different perspective in life. Nope, no problem with the non-binary. What I have a problem with is the press team that came right out of the gates on this character, flaunting his gender identity as if it was the first line in his character bio card. Scott Summers, the man called Cyclops, possesses the uncanny mutant ability to fire beams of devastating energy from his eyes. These optic blasts are so powerful that they can only be effectively harnessed by a special ruby quartz visor designed by Professor X. Over the years, Cyclops has grown from a sullen, withdrawn loner into a cool, confident, capable leader of the X-Men's Blue Strike Force. Extra fact, Cyclops recharges his optic blasts by absorbing solar energy. Rogue. In a way, Rogue is two women in one. And both of them are bad news to bad guys. She's got all the powers of the former Ms. Marvel. Super strength, invulnerability, the ability to fly. Plus her natural mutant ability to absorb the minds and powers of others. Skin-to-skin contact triggers the transfer which leaves the victim in a coma. And though the effects are usually temporary, if Rogue touches someone for too long, as she did with Ms. Marvel, she could be stuck with their powers and their memories forever. Did you know Rogue's controversial past includes a criminal career under the wing of her shape-shifting foster mother Mystique? Morph. Kevin Sidney. This is a non-binary mutant. He also has the incredible ability to shape change. He has an interesting buddy relationship with Wolverine. Extra fact, this character has so much more depth. See what I did there? By pushing their gender identity, the D was hoping to pander and get more people on board their stories, specifically a younger audience, because the show's inception wasn't originally designed for them in the first place. So how do you get more views? You pull a stunt like this, and it's just disgusting. The non-binary community deserves better than to be treated as some cheap dollar the mouse can lean on when in a pinch. Just watching the series should have been enough for us to clearly see he was a non-binary. This is, of course, providing the writers are fully capable of in-depth story progression and character development. Maybe a future episode? Oh, by the way, I made up my own bio card for Morph, and I think that they should have done something like this. Morph, real name Kevin Sidney. After being abandoned by his team and left for dead, this shape-shifting, emotionally distraught mutant found comfort in the embrace of a villain like no other. His mind being tormented and brainwashed by the evil Mr. Sinister, he fought long and hard to make his way back into Xavier's team. But this team will have to prove themselves to him as much as he to them. Extra fact, Morph is the only person that could make Wolverine laugh. Even throwing in a little Easter egg from the original series on that one, this would have made your larger target audience happy. Then as they go through the healing process, we could see his gender identity coming out during the season. Of course, the gender identities of the other characters back in the 92 cartoon were blatantly obvious, but they didn't come out and say it. It was all just written and developed with the characters as the series progressed. Progression. Honestly, progressive is the word I use to define shows that aren't afraid to push the boundaries and express the evolution of the human species towards a positive light. Woke, on the other hand, tends to push towards a forced narrative where certain people or corporations can enforce their views and beliefs onto others. Having different cultures and beliefs from people all around the world is what makes the human race so interesting, and pushing mutual respect for all people is the X-Men's main theme. Now on to the next major debate surrounding the extravagant sequel, Rogue. Like, how? What? But like, is this even? She has always been my favorite Marvel character. Heck, I would even go as far as to say she's my favorite comic book character of all time. I have never exaggerated before. Watching this show at a young age, I saw a character that, of course, was gorgeous and had a beautiful accent to go with her feminine charms. But wait, there's more. The character development for most of the X-Men throughout that 92 series was so in-depth, layered, and diverse, I could almost say most people could easily gravitate and relate to at least one of them. Even the villains were full of nuance. But, like, if the character you relate with the most is Apocalypse, you may want to seek some professional counseling.
A mutant! I am as far beyond mutants as they are beyond you.
Rogue could fly, take down a building, and had a level of confidence that had most viewers rooting for her. She was also emotionally damaged, lonely, and forced to keep others at an arm's length. As a geek from the 90s, we didn't have all these Marvel movies making it cool like it is today. I got beat up, made fun of, treated super poorly. I had to deal with my share of bullies, and honestly, I had like 2 or 3 friends. For real, growing up young like that in that day and age and liking this kind of geek culture, it was rough. I was like a super oddball kid. I didn't really go out and start making new friends until a couple years later when I realized that I hated it. I hated being alone all the time. I wanted to meet other people that had similar interests, and I wanted to reach out, so I started forcing myself to be more extroverted. I felt chained to my solitude like Rogue, and I just dreamed of getting out there. Needless to say, I gravitated towards her character all the way. Some of you have your own reasons, but this was mine. Look at me, a male gravitating towards a female character more than almost anything else. I didn't look at her packaging. I truly connected to her on an emotional level, and now that I'm older, I don't want her to change to fulfill someone else's narrative. You can relate to something and it doesn't have to become you. If only we could all just appreciate and accept the beauty of true diversity within the human race. But we got more Hellfire Club members out there than we do Charles Xavier's, and that's not a good thing. The second thing I have to mention about Rogue is, I can't believe I'm gonna mention this one, but it makes sense, I guess. I made this graph to give you all an idea of where I'm going with this next one. The male characters have their clothing almost painted on their bodies, so we see everything, which is completely unrealistic, but gives the fun, surreal superhero fantasy. You can't fly, teleport, climb walls, control metal, read minds. Well, that last part, some of us make it seem like we can. So why get frustrated when these unrealistic superhumans have unrealistic proportions? Or better yet, show them off. And why do guys get away with it while the girls have to constantly be drastically altered? While trying to make your moral high ground in your art designs, you've gone and stepped on the one thing you've been trying to eradicate for years. I get that women have been pushed to the brink when it comes to sexualization, but an eye for an eye and the world becomes blind. It's like a classic saying. I feel like a lot of us have already heard it. Revenge isn't the right direction to be taking. It should be equality. Literally what the X-Men have been trying to teach us since 1963. It's messed up to think that so many people on board the creative process for the X-Men 97 have forgotten this one crucial plot point. Rogue has been done in so many styles over the years, ranging from comics, cartoons, video games, to films. I would have had less of an issue with the new character design if they were making a new series, like X-Men Evolution, or maybe Wolverine and the X-Men. Shoot, this should have been a new series. The creators could have had true free reign to do whatever they wanted, and the hardcore fans would have been less critical. Well, okay, hold on, a little less. But instead, they wanted to ride on the coattails of a legacy series beloved by most, giving the House of Mouse a guaranteed amount of attention and potential monies. Even the toy companies got involved, with them already releasing the first wave and the second wave being up for pre-order and coming out soon. This is because they themselves fear the popularity or the blowback that this show's going to get. At least this way they can get some of your money from those action figures if it turns out bad, and if it's good, well hey, they'll sell out of everything in seconds. I'm just really happy that we get an epic toy company like, let's say, Mondo Toys, which is able to deliver us these designs with such accuracy. They know what the majority of the people want, and it shows from how quickly their pre-orders sell out. If the D really wanted to do a follow-up series, they could have had at least attempted to get the art right. Well, you know what? I guess it's fairly accurate, just not for the girls in the show. Even the faces seem so off. But they are really well drawn, just not like the source material. And it's just the girls? Once more, I'm just gonna leave this here. Meanwhile, on the other side of the fence, all these people arguing about the loss of their thicked up Rogue and lack of cake. I feel like they clearly see that there's something off, but they're not able to express themselves about it properly. And I hope that this video, I was able to help clarify it for everyone, because I'm not saying make the guys less sexualized. Sex is a healthy part of being a human, and it's fun and exhilarating. Sex positivity is a good thing. After all, most of us wouldn't be here today if it weren't for sex in the first place. Most of us. Accuracy plays a huge part. The art style of the 92 cartoon is pretty close to Jim Lee's comics, which it's based off, and with the writing being so similar, this is a major factor to why so many people loved it. If the 97 cartoon deviates too far from its source material through art style, changing key characters' personalities and backgrounds, or just going way off script with the story, then this show is going to really struggle. It may not get multiple seasons, and I want them to have multiple seasons. Hopefully, my talking about this whole X-Men 97 debacle has left you with a bit more of a general understanding of what's going on with the franchise and the community that is so passionate for it. I'm a firm believer that a table of dialogue should always be present, but I also believe it's not what you say, but rather how you say it. I don't see myself as an extreme right-winged person, nor do I position myself on the extreme left wing. I learned from the X-Men as a child the golden rule. It takes both wings to fly forward. If you're missing one, you're destined to just fly in circles forever. And I don't want to feel like this show isn't for people like me, you know? X-Men's supposed to be for everyone. If you like my video just a little bit, it doesn't cost much to telepathically bump that like, force blast that subscribe, or magnetically crush that notification bell. It goes a crazy long way at helping my channel grow, and I love and respect you for your support. Have an excellent rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye. That 97 cartoon better have an episode where it shows Rogue and Storm at the hair salon getting new haircuts. It may sound insignificant, but this is the sort of slice of life character development X-Men is dripping with. Like, Gambit could see her and make a joke about who put the flames out. For her loss of wild, thicked up hair, she'd reply, "Ah, hell no." Then we get a cute couple moment where Gambit gets real close. "This new dude done started firing me, mon amour." As he goes in for that kiss he ain't getting. Please, please let this be a good show.